truly is. Brown drives, scoop, layup off the glass.
That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice his body.
Garnett knocked away.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. The Celtics are reportedly closing in on a trade that would ship out Malcolm Brogdon and acquire Kristaps Porzingis. Spoonie and Jake are here to break it all down. Spoonie, how's it going, man?
Dude, is this real? What is happening? Like, I did not wake up this morning expecting to see like a kind of a blockbuster trade for the Celtics. So I'm still having trouble digesting that this is happening.
I give up trying to figure out what's going on with Brad, right? Like if you watched yesterday's episode, I built literally a million Malcolm Brogdon trades, and not a single one of them included Kristaps Porzingis. And like in hindsight, I was like, did you miss it? I don't know. I just didn't see it for whatever reason. And that just seems to be a trend with Brad. Like, good luck with the rumors. Good luck. Look, yesterday I was like, Kelly Olynyk. How about superstar version of Kelly Olynyk? How about that? Let's go. All right.
Amazing. And the tweet started rolling in at about 3:30 a.m. Sydney, Australia time this morning, Jake. So I don't know if you're as light a sleeper as I am, but that's basically the point at which I've been awake from, just constantly refreshing Twitter, refreshing Reddit, and just keeping abreast of all the news as it relates to Kristaps Porzingis. So here's the tweet. Here's the announcement from Shams breaking the Celtics, Wizards, and Clippers are closing in on a trade, sending Kristaps Porzingis to Boston, Malcolm Brogdon to LA, and Marcus Morris and draft compensation to Washington. Sources tell The Athletic and the Stadium. When I saw the word Marcus in that tweet, I had a little heart attack, just in fear that Marcus Smart was on the move. Let's just start with what else we know about this trade. So Woj reported Porzingis would opt in to his $36 million contract for 23-24 to make the potential trade happen. But there are still outstanding issues to be completed before a deal can be reached. Boston's Danilo Gallinari would be in the deal too, sources said. Jake Fisher also reporting that Gallo would be included in what is a developing three-team trade between Boston, LA, and Washington. And then Adam Himmelsbach quoted per source that the three-team deal that would bring the Wizards center Porzingis to Boston is nearing the final stages. So we have to say that this is not a confirmed trade yet. It's not done and dusted. Although if we've got this many bigwigs, this many big-name reporters, with this many sources, with this much information, suffice to say, it's probably going to get done. Spoonie, we'll start with you. Just initial reactions, initial thoughts on this move for the Celtics.
So my initial feeling is like, wow, this is incredibly risky because like you can't think of KP and not think of his injury history, man. Like, not to be a Debbie Downer, but like this dude gets hurt a lot. But the plus side is when he plays, he's really, really good. Like supercharged Kelly Olynyk. That's probably kind of downplaying how good he is. He's got some Al Horford in him on the offensive end. Like, Jake, you've been talking about like the handoff game. He can do that. He's an operator in like the high post in a way that we've never really had since like KG. Like, oh, okay, throw us that zone defense again. We'll just toss it to Porzingis and he'll shoot right over Bam. Like, Porzingis killed us this year from that like high post spot, just banging mid-range jumpers. So he's really, really, really talented. So we were talking about Ayton yesterday, and the same kind of analysis applies where it's like, it's risky, but the upside is incredible. And I think you can say the same about Porzingis, and he's on a 1-year deal. So that's kind of nice because you can kind of give it a go. And if it's a complete, utter disaster, you just let him walk. And if it's not, you hope you can sign him to, a slightly discounted deal, because 36 mil, if you give him more than that on an extension, like the cap starts to get real hairy real quick going into this new CBA. But, dude, Brad just like whipped him out and slapped him on the table, man.
Well, okay, so it's risky-ish, I guess, right? Like, how much more? Like, if Porzingis gets a 2-year extension at like 20 mil a year, let's call it, do you reckon it's gonna be more than that?
I bet it'd be 60, 30 a year. That's still a discount, right? 6 mil a year. Yeah, it's 2 for 60. He's making 36 right now, and he just had, had a great year. Yeah.
That seems high. That definitely seems high to me.
What are you thinking, Jake?
I don't know. I thought because he's opting in, right? So he gets his 36 million. I was thinking, yes, something like 25 to 20 range for like per year. And then if you get if it's 25, then really how different was that to the Brogdon contract anyway? You're swapping out Brogdon, who has his own injury concerns as well. And as healthy as he was this year, he got injured at the most important time. He got injured at game 1 of the conference finals, was a disaster, and was a big reason why the Celtics did not get over the hump. So you swap that out with Porzingis, who obviously has his own injury concerns. But how bad is this really? 65 games the most recent season, 32 minutes a game. Take that every day of the week. Previous season, 51 games. How much of that was just like, shutting people down, and 43 games is bad. But 57, 48, 66, and 72, it's not as bad.
That's pretty bad, Jake.
If you get 55 games from Porzingis and he's healthy for the playoffs, that's fine. We just have the Spider-Man meme now of Al, Rob, and Porzingis. Like, I'm insurance for you. No, I'm insurance for you. No, actually, I'm insurance for you. So they're all just like is rotating.
It's the office scene where they're all holding each other up.
Hey, yeah. They're all holding each other hostage with insurance, which I think works great. And then you obviously are rebalancing the roster. And I think we've spoken a lot about this. D White just pushing him to the forefront. That feels that just felt obvious, right? So I don't want to jump too far ahead, but yeah.
No, I mean, there's so much to get to. I think as far as positional insurance, like this is the position that we most need that insurance at when you factor in Rob's injury history, when you factor in Al Horford's just like insane oldness, that this is the level where we need that insurance. Like with Malcolm Brogdon aside, Smart and Derek White playing all 82 games last year, like there's less injury concerns. I know Smart, throws himself on the floor a lot and does get himself into injury trouble. But it's really at that center spot that we need that insurance at. So very happy with the addition there. Kevin O'Connor had some very, very good stats to come out on Twitter sort of immediately after these reports started coming out. So basically that Kristaps Porzingis is one of the best drop pick and roll defenders in the NBA. So ranked 4th there, allowing just 0.93 points per pick and roll. He's figured out how to score from the post and from the perimeter, attacking closeouts. So actually led all post scorers in 1.29 points per post possession as well. So just an incredible position of need there, and filling a lot of need for the Celtics as far as like our glaring issues in the playoffs last year. And one of you guys mentioned like the struggles attacking the zone there against the Heat. Like one guy that we can just get in the middle there at the nail is Porzingis. We've had difficulty getting the ball into the attacker in that position. Well, this dude's like 7'3". Not going to have as many issues getting him the ball. Just throw it up nice and high. So it's a great ad. What do you guys think, Spoonie, that the starting lineup is going to look like for the Celtics? Is Zinger going to go straight in there at the starting 5?
Real quick, I got more defensive stats for
dude. Those numbers are crazy.
Yeah, dude, I know. I got more. Insane. All right, less than 6 feet when Porzingis is the primary defender. Players' field goal percentage drops by 11%. So if you're around the rim, you're expected to shoot about 65%. You shoot 54%. Less than 10 feet, your field goal percentage drops by 9% if Porzingis is the primary defender. And even from 3, 1%. So like if he is near you, you are shooting much lower than your expected field goal percentage. So like being huge has a lot of value on defense, and like he's fairly mobile for his size. So the starting lineup, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I kind of was like expecting Grant to stick around, but now there's these reports because I love KP and Grant as sort of the starting, or maybe not starting front court, but those two work well together. So I think obviously the Jays, I mean, do you go Derek White? Do you go Smart? Do you go the 4 smalls and KP and have Rob and Al rotate off the bench? I don't know. I think yeah. I mean, KP and Rob can definitely play together. I'm not sure it actualizes KP offensively in the way you want, because you're probably just going to kind of stick him in the corner and have him, shoot open threes and drive closeouts. But he can do that. He can do that really, really well. So maybe you do Rob, KP, Jays, and one of the guards. Or maybe you go Al and just go like pure shooting with the Jays and one of the guards. So I kind of like the 4 out, like the 2 guards, KP and the Jays, and just like, we're going to blow you off the map offensively to start the game. And defensively, that is absolutely no joke either. You can switch 1 through 4, and KP's an elite rim defender. So there's a lot of options for Mazzulla. Man, he's just like a little tool, man. He is like, there's a lot of ways you can actualize him on both ends.
I was going to say it, and then Carl in the chat here, double bigs off the bench. Like all of a sudden we're bringing off like one of the best like lineups coming off the bench. And then
Still
it's like
double bigs.
And it's like Tatum, Al, Hauser, and Rob like anchoring this second unit. It's like
massive.
Oh my Lord, that is a monster lineup. And obviously you've got the offense with Tatum out there. It gives you a lot of versatility offensively. Like, and you talk about some of the, like, I think everybody agrees like the biggest issue for the Celtics is, the crunch time offense. That's like, and does this help you solve any of those problems? And one of the best ways that you get the Jays stuck in mud is when Miami switches everything. If you're switching everything and you're switching Gabe Vincent onto Porzingis or Caleb Martin onto Porzingis, like he's really good in post-ups. Like that's a massive, massive skill advantage. And, Mitch in the chat as well, I saw like, we've been screaming for Tatum post-ups. Are we going to get a Tatum and Porzingis just post-up masterclass in the 2023-2024 season? Like, as you want to fix the offense, you bring in like one of the most skilled offensive big men in the league. Like, if we want to rank him, right, it's like Jokic at number 1, Embiid at number 2. Off the top of my head, right, like it's, Porzingis is going to be in that next tier of offensive skilled big man, right?
Yeah.
It's
the injury concerns that have always sort of kept him out of consistently being in that conversation. We have I'm hesitant to call it a source. It's a person in the media who has sources within the team who said that it's looking like the starting lineup will be Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and then Porzingis at the 5, with Marcus Smart coming off the bench in that super sub role. Spoonie, do you think that's likely? Like Smart going back to the bench is something I'm sort of grappling with here.
I don't think it's likely, and I think it's first of all, the trade's not even done, so I think it's way too early to speculate. Like we don't know what Al. I like
whatever, dude. Come on.
All right, fine. It's not happening. Smart is still gonna start. I just don't see them moving Smart back to the bench, dude. No. Maybe that's the best thing for the team, but it just seems like a really difficult sell to him. And like, it doesn't really matter because it's about who ends games. And I think who is going to end games would be the Jays, the 2 guards, and one of the bigs, and probably KP. So I just don't see it. But man, you can make a pretty good argument. Derek White was better than Marcus Smart last year. So I understand kind of the thinking, but like Mazzulla does not seem like the type of guy to be like, this is who I'm starting in June. I'm declaring my starting lineup next year right now. Like, I just don't think that's how he operates.
Yeah. I think politically it's just so much easier to keep Marcus starting. And it's never like the starting lineup has always been something that you obsess about. And then the regular season, it does not really matter. And when it gets to the playoffs, I just don't think, if for whatever reason it's the best for the team for Marcus to come off the bench in the conference finals in Game 3, I have absolutely no doubt that Marcus will be okay with that in that situation. But opening night, Marcus is going to be starting. It's going to be Derek, Marcus, Jaylen, Jason. It's probably Porzingis, dude, honestly, right? Like, he's the best player.
Good. He's still good. You can't, like he's got to start. Sorry,
Ben, that comment was, there's a Knicks fan in the chat here that I wanted to draw attention to.
I did.
And like when KP played with Melo and D Rose, like, KP had that run, right? And he was just cleanup guy, dirty work, floor space. So he can literally space, from shoot from anywhere on the court. It's just like that. There was a reason that when he went to Dallas, he got traded for that much. So, like, yes, the injury stuff and similar to Brogdon, but this is like a much higher ceiling talent-wise than Brogdon. And you gave up nothing. Like, I'm sorry. The fact that we're not going to get Danilo Gallinari
I know.
is
R.I.P.
is tough. Is tough. But I mean, like again, like this is the superstar version of Gallinari as well, right? Like whatever you were going to hope to get from Gallinari, you trim down the guard rotation, you bring in the KP version, and the injury concern with Gallinari and KP is obviously like, you're probably expecting a hell of a lot more out of KP, obviously. So it just makes sense.
The injury scenario, it's a wash, right? Like between Brogger or Brugsy rather, as we came to know him, and Porzingis, like it's a wash either way. And then we talked about like the skill set, the positional diversity, like that's a win for the Celtics. And then is Porzingis the best player in the trade? I think he is.
Oh yeah,
kind of by far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's switch ball sports for a moment and talk about baseball. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with our sponsor, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/Boston to join today. Don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. Now, one of you guys queued up, Spoonie, I believe it's you. How could I have forgotten? We talked about it 5 minutes ago. A nice little MLB bet for us to talk about with our friends here at FanDuel.
Okay, the Red Sox are hot. They just swept the Yankees. They're down 2-3 to the Twins right now, the Twinkies, as you're listening to this. If you're listening live, hit that Sox money line. It's floating between plus 140 and 160. If you're listening tomorrow morning, hit the Sox money line against the Twins tomorrow night. Like, believe in the Sox, man. They're coming back. They're feeling good. They're about to go on a run here.
I love it. And if you want, you can bet on the Australian baseball, the Ashes. Australia versus England is like the biggest thing. And Australia money line, it's not the best value, -220, but England's got no shot. So that's just
no shot.
Amazing. Like there's two, like you could either bet on Wembanyama $100 and win like 5 cents, or you can bet $100 on the Australia to win the Ashes. Pretty much same odds. So you got plenty of options here.
Yeah. It's a slam dunk in the cricketing world. All right, thanks for that, guys. So I know
you are the only two people that would know. Yeah,
I don't know. Is Aussie
Phil just commented? There you go.
Yeah, great. There we go. Shout out to Aussie Phil. Now, Jake, you mentioned this via a user comment a second ago, but my question was, is Porzingis too ball dominant? And you cited that sort of past example of him playing with was it D Rose and Carmelo Anthony?
Yeah,
and how he was an all-star in that environment. Like there has been some questions as to Porzingis's like personality. He might be like a sort of a difficult guy to get along with or integrate into an otherwise tight-knit locker room. My first thoughts on that is like our locker room is relatively tight-knit, particularly if we keep Blake Griffin around, for example, that it might actually be a good environment for Porzingis to land in as far as like, okay, this is one of the first environments where it's a true winning culture. We've got a lot of talent that we've drafted and sort of built that culture from the ground up. And it could actually be a good, safe, cushy environment in which to integrate Kristaps Porzingis. I'm also willing to admit that that's probably somewhat wishful thinking on my part. So what do you guys think about that? Are there any concerns from your viewpoint that personality-wise that Porzingis might not be a good fit?
I just, outside of the Kyrie season, right? Have we had any issues? I think everybody's pulling together. Everybody wants to win a title. You've got Blake. Please, would love to keep Blake around from that perspective. But I think everybody has a shared goal at this point. Like they have just gone through so many tough losses for a group of guys that are like, Marcus, Jalen, and Jason's age. Like they have more playoff losses, like real playoff scars, than Pierce, Allen, and KG had when they all got together. Obviously, those guys were older and had like that career carousel type of perspective. But outside of the Kyrie year, I know people like to, in the national media, like to call back to when Marcus Smart threw a chair in the middle of the conference finals in the bubble. But it's like everybody wants them to yell at each other. Like on one hand, people are like, there's not enough dog and not enough fire. They're not yelling at each other. And then they do it. And it's like, oh, the locker room's fracturing. these guys won 57 games last year. Outside of the COVID year and the Kyrie year, these guys have pushed for the conference finals every single year. If you're a KP, like I think you're going to be coming in here. There's plenty of offensive touches to go around. The way that these guys play, especially during the regular season. Yeah, I'm not concerned about him being a detractor in any way.
I'll go one step further. I think it's good he needs touches and wants touches. We need, like, Malcolm Brogdon's usage percentage was about 23%. KP's at 27. That's not a huge gap. Mm-hmm. And I think the beauty is, would you guys agree, Kyle Kuzma, kind of a poor man's Jaylen Brown? Brad Beal, kind of a poor man. Yeah, kind of a poor man's Tatum, right?
Yeah.
So when Porzingis and Kuzma shared the floor with Bradley Beal off, the Wizards had a 116 offensive rating. That would be like the 6th best offense in the league and a +4 net rating. This is easy mode for Jaylen Brown when Jason Tatum is sitting, right? He can just run pick and roll with Kristaps Porzingis. He can pick, he can pop, he can roll hard to the rim, he can run ISO, he can post up. So it's like we have all these issues when Jason Tatum is not on the floor, right? Well, now we have a high usage, incredible offensive player to pair with Jaylen Brown to mitigate those issues. And he's already proved it with a worse running mate than Jaylen Brown when their superstar is off the floor. So like, it makes a lot of sense. And like in the playoffs, like, dude, they played great offense. They had an even better offense when all three of them were on the floor together. 119 offensive rating, which would have led the league. So I'm not worried about it, man. Like Porzingis is such a varied skill set that, first of all, Fuzzy Dunlop. Is this? Calling Beal a poor man's Tatum is a homer thing to say. Maybe as a Washington fan, like, yeah, I'm probably not giving Tatum enough credit. That's what I'm saying. Like, Bradley Beal did not have you look up Bradley Beal's stats from last year, dude. Tatum was all NBA first team. So, but yeah, like Porzingis can fit in so many different ways offensively that like he will get his 15 minutes a game where he is the crown jewel of the offense, and then he will fit in. He'll get touches with Tatum and Brown both out there, and then he'll get a lot of touches when one of them sits. So I think offensively is like there is nothing to worry about, even though he is high usage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw another concern in the chat here about like his rebounding numbers, and so I went and like had a look at his defensive rebounding percentage last year was 19.4. Rob's defensive rebounding percentage was 20.9. So like, it's not.
He doesn't get offensive boards because he's usually spacing out or playing from the elbow and stuff like that. So he's not in the. But hey, that's what we got Rob for, man. Rob will crash the glass, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm keeping an eye on Twitter here because, like, I think the general consensus is this is not the last move for the Celtics. But interesting to see if they do move on from Rob. It sounds like Grant might be on the move as well. But we'll keep you guys updated if anything comes through on Twitter there. Before we move on to that stuff, though, we should talk about, I guess, some of the weaknesses. We've been kind of frothing over Zinger a little bit here, rightfully so, because he's a very intriguing and talented player. I think to begin with the weaknesses, the injury concern is the main factor there. He played 65 games last year, but then just rattling back the few years prior, 51 games, 17 games, and obviously that was a COVID-affected season, 34 games. Like he hasn't exactly been able to stay on the court. And yet we talked about the positional insurance there. Do you think that's enough? Like, is that a safety net that Porzingis hasn't had on a team prior in his career? And is that going to be enough to sort of keep everyone on the court with some consistency?
I was just going to say that 34-year game is actually 51 because because he was traded in the middle of the season. It was like 34 in Dallas and 17 in Washington, just to make sure we get the propaganda.
I will admit I discovered that as I was reading it out loud, and I was like, "Hang on a second, I hope someone thank you."
Yeah, I mean, like that's the only concern, right? I hadn't even thought about the idea that Rob could be on the move still, which is an interesting thing to think about, which I think is definitely possible. I guess, right? So you broke my brain there. I was like, whoa, I've just been thinking about Rob and KP together.
On court worries, I think if you are in the deep Eastern Conference Finals, the finals, like smart teams will find a way to isolate him on the perimeter one-on-one with their best ball handler. And that is going to concern you. I mean, you're going to have to trap, you're going to have to hedge, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff to protect KP from those situations. So we'll see. I mean, he's not a perfect player, right? There's a reason we're getting him for Malcolm Brogdon and what seems like spare parts otherwise. Like, he's definitely got that weakness. Like, he is not a great defender in space. You can coach around that. We just saw Michael Malone do that with Jokic, who has similar weaknesses. So, you know, it's not a zero risk with the injuries and some of the defensive concerns, but man, it's a massive talent upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in the Eastern Conference, right, like those quicker guards, there's not too many of them. Like, how many guys are you worried about, like the dancing ISO type players? Like, we had some trouble with Trae Young, but that felt way more because of an executing the drop issue than anything else. And same with when Harden went off as well. Like, then that just speaks to more some kind of buy-in. Oh, we've got a super chat here.
Yeah.
Justin Thompson. We kind of touched on it earlier. I don't know if Ben, if you want to pull up that tweet from I got it here, Kevin O'Connor, just to reiterate. But like, there are some really good drop defense numbers with KP. He's a much better defender than I think people realize, but at the highest level, we honestly haven't seen it.
No,
right? So we don't really know. But look, you look at Denver, and look at what the Nuggets were able to do around Jokic. Like, they obviously have had one of the best offenses of all time to kind of make that easier. But KP's been a better defender than Jokic on paper for most of his career. So it's definitely tenable.
And better in drop defense than anyone that we've had on the roster in the last couple of years. So I know that playing drop defense has its inherent weaknesses and faults and attackable exploits, but Porzingis is just a better defender in that spot than what we've seen on the Celtics roster thus far. And David Aldridge had this before on the defensive side, that Porzingis is better on the defensive end than some of you might think, and has been throughout his career. He's tied 18th out of 55 power forwards / centers in defensive Raptor last season per 538. So again, we continue to uncover all of these amazing defensive stats. You think of Porzingis as an offensive player, and largely he is, but surprisingly, he holds up on the defensive end as well, which is great.
I like this from DJ Daniel. Brad basically traded Tyson Neesmith for Prime Unicorn. Genius.
I would trade him straight up for Neesmith right now. No, I think there's ways to scheme around, because I mean, like, I keep saying it, but like, just being 7'3" with an absurd wingspan, like, you can make up a lot of your defensive mistakes like that. I'm worried about Jimmy Butler, and I'm worried about Giannis, because he cannot handle Giannis, dude. No. Like, he's not strong enough, he's not quick enough, and I feel the same way with Butler. So but Butler, both those guys you can just sag off and have heavy help against. So I think they'll be okay. It's so maybe Brunson, I don't know, maybe he gives you a worry, but I'm not super worried about that. Maybe Donovan Mitchell, but they can't shoot the ball. So I don't know. It's a good trade, man. It's a scary trade, but a good one.
I love it. Brad taking the plunge. My only complaint is that I can't see it now. We've got to wait like 100
I know. Oh my God.
Whatever it is. And hopefully just like not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but like play one preseason game, you know, hopefully get through it and then shut it down. Like, no risk. No risk, please.
Ben's already there. He's like,
yeah.
No, should he be playing Summer League? I don't know.
Arity in the chat says that Brad Stevens just uses Raptor ratings to figure out who we should trade for. Shout out to everyone in the chat.
White.
Having a great time reading all these comments, so keep them coming through. One thing that we would be incredibly remiss not to touch on, because it's part of the Kristaps Porzingis story, and I think the world we live in is more problematic if we do gloss over these things, but we're just going to stick to the facts. And this is per Ian Begley via a 2019 ESPN.com article. So in March 2019, the article goes on to say it was publicly revealed that a woman accused Porzingis of sexual assault at the Sky Building in February 2018, hours before he tore his ACL. The woman reportedly told police she waited more than a year to come forward because she had discussed getting a large payout from Porzingis to keep quiet. Porzingis' attorney, Roland G. Riopel, publicly denied the claim and said that he had previously referred the case to federal authorities due to the, quote, accuser's extortionary demands. And we're just going to leave it there because those are the facts, and we're not going to bother to add our own opinions to them because they just don't matter in cases like this. But like we said, that's a part of the Porzingis story, and it's important that that is mentioned as part of all of this. Now, we should move on because Grant Williams is potentially affected by all of this. Adam Himmelsbach of the Globe had in a tweet earlier that according to multiple league sources, the completion of the Porzingis deal would likely mean that Grant Williams' time in Boston has come to an end. Then Yossi Goslin of Hoop Type followed up with the Boston Celtics will be $8 million below the second tax apron with 12 players after acquiring Kristaps Porzingis. If Grant Williams doesn't return, they still have enough flexibility to use the $5 million tax mid-level exception. Re-signing him would take them over that second apron, eliminating the MLE, and then going into next year, assuming that that contract was more than 1 year, we'd remain above that second apron and have extreme prohibitive measures imposed upon us. So, Spoonie, what's the play here with Grant Williams? Like, obviously, we want to keep him, and he'd be a great 4 to slide in along with that rotating injury risk circle of bigs that we've discussed. But it sounds like that's not going to happen. So, what do you think's the play here?
Yeah, if Grant can come back for $11 or $12 million a year, like, I think it would be insane to worry about the luxury tax when you're talking like $8 million to $12 million or something like that. Like, the second tax apron penalties don't come into play until next offseason. So bring him back, and then you can easily salary dump him or somebody else. Actually, it'd probably just have to be him because just about everybody else is going to be on minimum. So, I mean, Grant's going to be very tradable on a $12 million contract next offseason or at the trade deadline if it doesn't work out. So unless you can find a decent sign and trade for Grant Williams, like, I don't think this is going to change it that much because you're going to have to include so much salary in the trade just to get Porzingis that, like, your salary bill is not going to go up a ton. You know, Horford drops from 26.5 down to 10 this offseason. So you've got some room there. I just think it would be really disappointing if they start to get cheap on a couple $1 million and lose Grant Williams as an asset right now. It just before the CBA really truly kicks in. So please, like, if it's a sign and trade, you cut some salary and you get a role player back, that's fine. But if you just let him walk, that just seems silly to me.
Mm-hmm. Jake?
Yeah, it sounds like if they're going to get a sign and trade done if they decide to not re-sign him, which does not surprise me at all because he clearly has value around the league. If he does go, I'm okay with it. I think at this point, like, you just have to trust Brad and where he's at with Grant and how he fits into this team and how much he values him. If he's kind of happy to let Grant go, I think then Brad, that kind of tells you what Brad thinks of Grant and how impactful he's going to be at the highest level. And I do think we've kind of seen it. Like, it was good that Grant finally got into the rotation against Miami and he had some good moments, but he is limited. He's always going to be like, oh, if Grant was 2 inches taller, he would have got that rebound. If he was 2 inches taller, he would have blocked Jimmy. Or if he was, this much quicker, he would have done X. Really solid player. But I think when you're talking about high level impact guys, when you're down to a 6-man, 7-man rotation max, when you get to the finals, like, is Grant really going to be one of those guys? Probably not. Maybe. Like, he's not quite that good, I don't think. And if you're able to get back value and you kind of just recoup the war chest of assets. I saw a trade here, like sending him to Dallas for like the 10th pick. I mean, you do that in a heart. You do that in a heart.
Yeah, of course.
You do that. But like, I promise you, like, I went back and looked at the last 10 years of 10th draft picks, and the player that you're going to get with the 10th pick overall is probably not going to be as good as Grant. Of the last decade, there are 2 players that are better than Grant that got taken with the 10th pick, and it's Mikal Bridges and CJ McCollum. Other than that, it's like Jalen Smith from the Suns. It's like it's a bunch of guys that like barely made it to their second contracts. Grant's going to be better than all those guys. The 10th pick, though, has this like allure to it. Absolutely no question. But the reality is after like pick 3, they're all just massive crapshoots. But you'd take that as a Celtics fan, obviously. So we'll see. I reckon they get value, but I'm just at a point now where I'm like, if Brad doesn't value him enough to like pay and keep him, then that probably tells you all you really need to know.
The Grant for Stu Beef deal makes a lot of sense for both teams when we were talking about it yesterday, man. It makes a lot of sense because they need shooting bad, and Stu Beef would slot into this rotation as like hey, you're playing 36 minutes tonight. Oh, you're not playing tomorrow night because Rob's healthy. So
I was going to say, like, do you have like the opposite problem of the guard room from this year, though? If you trade Grant for Beef Stew, all of a sudden you've got, Al, Rob, Beef Stew, and KP, but you've got the value of Stu, right? Like, as long as you're getting like real value back for him, then it doesn't matter so much. Yeah, it's the wing. Can we get one more, like, because Grant, he's the tweener, right? He was never really big enough to play the 5. He was never really quick enough to play the 3. And in today's NBA, you kind of need to be either a wing or a 3 or a 5-man, as valuable as he has proven to be at times.
Yeah, which is why I like this trade that DJ Daniel has proposed in the chat here. Trade Grant for a third wing behind the Jays like Chris Duarte. And it has been reported that the Pacers had expressed some interest in Grant Williams recently. So that's something that could be on the cards there. I liked Chris Duarte in college. I thought he was a good player. He hasn't really had the exact same opportunity in Indiana there to prove himself, but he is a good, capable player. And as much as we love Hauser, like it's definitely an upgrade of that backup wing position as well. The thing that irks me so much about potentially and quite possibly losing Grant Williams is, he's basically a 40% 3-point shooter with size. We've just talked about this great rotation of centers, and I just don't think that we could rely on Horford at the 4 all year at 37 years old, getting pulled out to the perimeter. Like we saw him get attacked time and time again in the playoffs. Like he is gradually losing a step, if not having already lost a step. Grant Williams is a good modern, like, sort of combo big, if you will, that we can like put in there, who can stretch the floor, who can switch, who can defend, does a little bit of everything. And I feel like we're losing a lot of versatility if we lose Grant. But I should just shut up because it sounds like he's absolutely going. So
I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if he stays. Like, is someone going to shell out $16 million for Grant? I don't know. There's not a lot of teams with cap space. There really isn't.
The like intel, if you want to call it that, on this is really vague. Like people that I've spoken to or I've seen on Twitter, like their intel is like, it looks like they'll be moving on from Grant and sentence. And it's like, what do you know? Who said something to you? Like, why won't you tell us? So there's information out there. It's just not being publicized.
We started this podcast with Brad did it again. No one knew. Right. Not a single report had anything tied to Porzingis. Nothing. The only thing we knew is that they were looking to move around Brogdon and Pritchard. So we've heard from other teams that teams are interested in Grant. We haven't really heard the Celtics are shopping Grant reports, really, have we? Like outside of like the Himmelsbach today being like this, or it was Mannix, I think, likely saying this spells the end of Grant.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't Mannix. It's the opposite's probably going to happen, right?
Yeah,
so no, we've only seen
at it as well.
Did he? All right. Well, we've only seen other teams being interested in Grant Williams, which to me tells me like we're going to get something back if we do let him go. So, I mean, there's a lot of like backup wings we could probably find for Grant. I don't know if they're going to be as good as him because I think he's gone full circle. He was underrated, then he was overrated. Yeah. Now he's kind of back to being underrated at this point.
Hey, look, our good friend Jay Crowder's like got a pretty good feeling he's going to be available for the minimum.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah, to ride the pine in the playoffs. Yeah. All right, let's move on because we do have to wrap this thing up fairly soon. Is this enough to appease Peyton Pritchard, Jake? Do you think Pritchard's going to stick around? Is there enough?
The only question that matters.
Yeah, is there enough promise for a reinsertion of PP at the beginning of next season?
Pritchard won. He said this town's not big enough for the two of us, and he flexed his power, and out goes Malcolm Brogdon, and the Boston Pea Party continues for another season. I think there's going to be a lot of Celtics fans that are happy that we're sending out Brogdon and keeping Pritchard. Like I know we're a pro PP insertion podcast for the most part. I think there's a place for Pritchard to play 10 to 12 minutes a night. I have a feeling he's going to end up being annoyed again, though, would be my guess. Like, yeah.
What does he want, though? Like, dude, you're getting 15 minutes a night on like a title favorite. Like, bro, this is easy street. This is like perfect for you. You want to go put up 10, 15 shots a night on Detroit and win 20 games? Like, I don't know. Maybe that is what he wants. Who knows?
Yeah, like as much as we love him, at best, he's like, what, a seventh man on a really bad team? Like, is he
Yeah.
He's not starting anywhere.
Look, when we won 41 games, he was what, our sixth man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
He was fine.
Yeah.
That's
we
right.
won 41 games.
Yeah. Yeah, but don't forget, like, if you replace Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson and Daniel Tice with good players and Pritchard still your sixth man, then maybe you win like 50 games. Like, I legitimately think he can be a seventh man on a good team. I don't understand. I think he does enough. He's one of those guys. Like, I think that he can do enough to be like a solid player on like a 6 seed. I don't. We just don't know. When we did see it in his rookie year, I thought he was good enough. It's just we haven't seen it since then.
Mm-hmm. Now, should we move on and farewell the sixth man of the year, Malcolm Brogdon, who graced our shores? Is that what you say? In Boston for a year? Yeah, we'll say that. We were very excited to have acquired him. We were very sad to have moved on from Aaron Nesmith, particularly our guy Wayne Spooner here I believe, is still grieving that trade. And yet now we move on from Malcolm Brogdon in favor of Kristaps Porzingis. Brogdon obviously shot the lights out all of last year until that wrist or arm injury. Like I said, he won the sixth man of the year. Like, he did a lot for this team, and yet there was just a little bit too much of a crowding happening at that guard spot. And I think the consensus was that it was time to move on. I'd be interested to hear how Brogdon felt about that, when that sort of stuff comes to light. Should we just go around the room and like share a favorite memory or moment with Malcolm Brogdon? Or something less corny? I'd be open to
Well, music.
I was just going to be like, he was kind of a polarizing player on this podcast. I know me and Spoonie had a pod where we were like, are our expectations for Brogdon too high? And then he like shot 50% from three for the rest of the season. Yeah. But I think when he came in, the comparison I eventually got to was like he was the superstar version of Schroeder, and he was a lot better at that role. But again, the guys that are gonna have the ball in their hands on this team have to be willing to move it, and like the guards and we just, between Jalen being on this team, like Brogdon couldn't be another guy with blinders on, and that just kind of fed into some of the issues that the Celtics had with the ball getting sticky. He didn't hit Rob on a lob all season long. But his job was to come in, get buckets, and help us get wins. And he played 65 plus games, won sixth man of the year, and was a reason that we won 57 games and got to the conference finals. Like he was really good in the Atlanta series, solid throughout the Philly series. It's just a real bummer that he got injured right in the Heat series, because all we needed was his like 11 points a game, and maybe we get to the finals. It's just, and maybe we're not having this conversation. But that's how it goes.
Look, Brogdon was good, but I have fear that like if he doesn't shoot his career high from 3-point on ridiculous volume next year, like he couldn't finish around the rim. His rim finishing was like around 50%, which is atrocious. And he was brought in to do one thing: bolster the offense when Jason Tatum set. Well, the net rating for this team when Brogdon was on and Tatum was off was 0.8. Mm-hmm. That's like, I mean, that's nothing. You know what I mean? We're a 500 team. Like you're not really doing the one thing you were brought in to do, and that's make sure we're still very good when Tatum sits. So I found Brogdon to be very fun to watch when the shot was going, and probably one of Schroeder level frustrating to watch when the shot was not going in, maybe worse. So, dude, man, like when the shot wasn't going, which was rare, but like, dude was not a passer ever. Like he missed so many open guys. And I know partly that's role, but also like Sam Hauser's wide open. Like pass the ball to him, man. Don't try to finish over length. So I won't be super sad to see Brogdon go, but he was definitely a positive for the team. He was a very good player. He's a pro on and off the court. Like, I have no bad things to say about him other than like, he just didn't quite do exactly what we brought him in to do. And that's okay. You can move on and go from there.
Yeah, it's amazing how he kind of ended up being everything we didn't expect him to be.
Yeah.
Just this like knockdown three-point shooter, like a crazy league-leading three-point shooter, not really orchestrating the offense when Tatum sat at all, but really just putting his head down and going for the rim. Like, I wonder if the directive was like, we just need you to score. You're a scorer. When a scorer sitting, you're the scorer. And like you mentioned the net rating when Tatum was on the bench and Brogdon was on, I believe it was even worse when the combination of Brogdon and Brown were sharing the court together as well. So it's not like he was, finding, you mentioned not finding Hauser or not finding Rob Williams. He wasn't even finding our second best player on a regular basis, or at least those two weren't gelling well together. So
I have it real quick, Ben. They were dead.
Go.
Yeah, it was worse. Instead of 0.8, it was 0. So they were even worse with Jalen and Brogdon there together. So yeah, that's not ideal. Like, that's a bad sign, right? That's a red flag.
Yeah. So good pickup for Clippers, though, I think. Maybe he plays better with their 2 all-star wings than he did with ours.
Add him to the injury pile, baby.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, at least on this team, the Jays are healthy.
Yeah.
Like, adding another big injury risk to like the biggest injury risk team in the league is but again, there's just not that many point guards out there. And like, that's why the Celtics landed on Brogdon. It's like this mythical Chris Paul guy it just doesn't exist. Like, the guy that's just going to set the table, no turnovers, set everybody up. It just, in this current NBA, like, they don't exist. They just don't. And so, like, that's why we tried Brogdon, didn't work. And so you go back, like, Derek and Marcus are way more that type of guy than Brogdon. I do have one Galaxy brain take to get off before we get out of here.
Please.
Should we go for it? So yeah, this reminded me that people talking about Luka in the chat here. Is there potentially a bit of a macro, longer term strategy to what Brad Stevens is thinking here? So,
okay.
Porzingis gets traded for a superstar package, and everybody's like, "Wow, great trade by Dallas making that move." Everybody in New York, I remember Jason Concepcion having a conniption over how much they gave up for the unicorn. He goes to Dallas. Obviously, there's some injury issues, but Luka can't make it work with KP. Can't make it work with the big three of KP and Brunson, who KP just had a career year. Brunson just had a career year. In comes Porzingis to Boston. Most likely they win 55-ish plus games. They're 1-2 seed. KP's like winning more than he's ever won before. Now we're saying, people want to go play with Luka? No, people want to go play with Jason Tatum. You want to, reclaim your career? You come to Boston, you play with Jason Tatum, always available, plays defense, gets wins. Not only does that just prop up Jason Tatum standing around the league, which is very important, does Luka Doncic have a look around? And he's just had another play-in flame out, and he's having his recovery beer, and he's like, it would be nice if this recovery beer was green.
Boom, mic drop.
Let's go play with Jason Tatum, who's always in the conference finals, always making deep playoff runs, always winning.
So that's the future Jaylen Brown trade for Luka?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
Is Luka too high usage to work on this team, though, guys?
Well, he'd be the second banana, so I think he'd be willing to take a step back. Yeah.
True. Yeah. Like, you're set and pick Luka for JT.
Exactly.
All right, very quickly, the Brad Stevens resume, we've added a line to it today. So let's go back in chronological order, starting from the beginning. So he traded Kemba Walker for Al Horford, traded Romeo Langford and Josh Richardson for plus a first-round pick for Derek White. Then he trades Daniel Tyson pennies for Malcolm Brogdon.
How dare you?
Naismith has been. Hey, look,
he's been good. How dare you? Anyway, continue.
The great Aaron Naismith and Tice for Malcolm Brogdon, and then trades Malcolm Brogdon for Kristaps Porzingis. I say that's quite an impressive resume. Let's add a NBA championship to that. One final news item before we go. That is, and this is reported by Travis Branham, that Duke assistant coach Emile Jefferson is finalizing a deal to become an assistant coach with the Boston Celtics. That happened, and unfortunately for Emile Jefferson, that's been buried by all the Porzingis happenings. But very tight with Jaden Tatum, and so it's a very notable hire in that sense.
But did you see Tatum's tweet about like
sources?
I'm sick and tired of people saying with sources. If you got something to say, put your name on it or shut the hell up. I saw someone be like, does it mean that the Emil Jefferson thing was baloney? That would be a weird fake story would be about a deep Pacific coach coming in. But
don't get my boys' hopes up.
Yeah, right. Man, Brad Stevens though, living the mantra of hitting singles, right? Like I know we said maybe the Derek White trade was a double, but at the time it didn't really feel like it turned into like 3 stolen bases from the single. But like he's not taking those big swings. He's getting value. He's like to not have to give up anything from draft capital related. So now you still have your 35th pick, Pritchard, Rob, whatever. There's like still like medium-sized moves to be made without actually making like wholesale changes to this roster. This guy's good. This guy's good at his job. Brad, let's go.
We love him very much. Now we are about to wrap up. We do have a nice little audience here. So before we go, guys, any final takes or anything you want to rattle off before we call it a day?
Well, just come watch us live. We're going live for the draft. Far out. That's tomorrow. How good is this week? This is one of the best weeks.
My wife's going to divorce me, but
I do.
Yeah. So follow us First to the Floor YouTube, and we'll be going live.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who joined us in the live stream here. A reminder, as Jake said, we will be live streaming the draft on YouTube, not playback. That's youtube.com/@firsttothefloor. Spoonie, Jake, love your work. See you guys on that draft stream tomorrow night. Until then, go Celtics. See ya.